And we are live for the Steelers Depot live stream here on Monday, March 7th. Glad to be back with you guys. As always, I am Alex Kazora alongside Dave Bryan here for the next hour answering any and all of your Steelers questions. Let me pull up the chat here and we will get started. So we have a $5 super chat. Chad, I'm going to need your help here. We've had a bad storm come through Pittsburgh today, so my internet's been a little messy. Please let me know, A, if you can hear me okay, B, if the stream is okay, and if you can hear Dave. So, Dave, I'll bring you in here. Thanks for joining us. Give me a test, please, in chat. Please let me know if there are issues. There may be issues with the audio or video. Letting me know would be very helpful.
Check. Hello. How is everybody on this Monday night?
So, yeah, if you
Check.
guys, could let me know. Dave sounds a little like a robot on my end, but I don't know if he sounds maybe better on your guys' end. Brian says all good. Get more people just confirming how things sound, and it may bounce a little bit here in the stream. But if I could have some more people, uh, Dave's mic is off. Ross, when you
Everybody
say
hear me okay?
right, yeah, do you sound Dave? Does Dave sound okay? When you say off, let me know if that means like off as in funny or off as in not. You can't hear it. Okay, everyone says it sounds all good. So we're going to try to power through here. It shouldn't be too bad. Let me look at my stream. Stream looks healthier than it was a minute ago. So we'll cross our fingers here and get after it. So let me try one thing for the Dave robot thing. But people are saying it's clear, so I'm not entirely sure. Dave, give me another quick test if you could, please.
Hello. Let's see. Ross Knoxley, Jason, Ryan, Mark Leslie, Tim. How is everybody?
All right. Well, most people say it's all good, so it may not be perfect. I apologize. I've had some gremlins today, unfortunately, with the storms that we got. So we'll push on though, because we have a lot to talk about here. Coming off the combine, free agency just about a week away, a little more than that, and the tampering period is actually 1 week from today. So that'll start already breaking some of the news there, some of the free agents we might see Pittsburgh sign. But let's get to the questions again. Be sure to put them in the chat. $5 super chat from our friend Tim Chase says, please tell me the Rodgers thing is a hoax. Wouldn't call it a hoax, but I would say the odds aren't terribly good of it happening. I think they are a bit higher than what Dave believes in terms of Rodgers coming to Pittsburgh. Maybe we'll find out our answer tomorrow. That's some of the speculation, but we'll just have to wait and see.
Yeah, look, I've said right from the start, whether or not there any of these recent stories, Mike Florio and all like that, how much of that is true. I don't really know, but I'll tell you this, and I've said this right from the start. I'll be very surprised if they do trade for Aaron Rodgers. Personally, I think I'll be surprised if Aaron Rodgers goes anywhere, but I will be particularly surprised if he ends up landing with the Steelers. So once again, for Mike Florio, look, I mean, Mike's done this a long time. Either he's just trying to stir the pot, or either somebody has told him something, a source that he really trusts. Look, Mike Florio and Pro Football Talk is busy enough without having to, in my opinion, kind of create rubbish like this. So there's a reason Mike's posting the kind of talking about stuff that he is. Whether or not it's true, I don't know. I will just say that I will be very surprised if Aaron Rodgers is traded to the Steelers.
Yeah, I still think the expectation, both myself and those in the national media think and believe that Rodgers will return to Green Bay. But we don't know that. No one knows what he wants to do. And if Rodgers sits there hypothetically and says, I want to come to Pittsburgh, are the Steelers going to say no? I think that I have a hard time believing they're going to say no to that.
Okay, and maybe they won't, but I mean it's going to cost. Obviously, you would think a good sum of draft capital to kind of get that stuff done. And once again, if you're going to commit to him, you're going to commit to him for at least 2 years, or more likely 3, I would think, at a minimum. There, coming to Pittsburgh would also require a new contract, and him being resulting in the highest paid player in the NFL at that point. So are we talking $15 million a year? I think so. And then you get back in that cycle of the franchise quarterback and all the sins that kind of go along with it. So once again, I'm not going to sit here and say it's not going to happen, but I'll be mighty surprised if it does.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, Rodgers had seemed to say a while back he would decide. Well, first he said he would decide quickly, and that has not happened. But he said he would decide before the franchise tag deadline, which is tomorrow, Tuesday at 4 p.m. Eastern time. So hopefully we'll know by then. And I think even if he does one out, Denver's a more likely option. But I could see him wanting to come to Pittsburgh, and if he wants to come to Pittsburgh, it's hard for the Steelers to say, "Nah, we don't want the two-time MVP." All right, next question comes from our first question that was a non super chat from our friend Lumberzack94. Hey fellas, Dave, I hope you had a nice vacation. Josh did a good job filling in and would love to hear more from him again. Yeah, we'll have Josh on at some time later, I'm sure before the draft. My question.
I'll just quit then.
No, he said it. Just good to have the time off.
I'm just kidding.
My question is: do you think Steeler fans are higher on Linderbaum than the Steelers themselves are? That's a very interesting question. What's your take, Dave?
Repeat the question.
Do you think Steeler fans are higher on Tyler Linderbaum than the Steelers themselves are?
Yes, I do. I think they like him to some degree, but I don't think they like him first round. Like him like a lot of these fans. Look, early on in the process, throughout the pre-draft, or I should say, during the end of the season, before I got into the pre-draft process, just kind of following along with his games at Iowa and the highlight cut-ups. They were impressive, but those were just cut-ups. And when you get into the actual tape there, I think our own Tom Mead did the profile on him. Tom, I think Tom was pretty critical about the fact that some of his struggles against some of those bigger body guys. Now, I think you got to have the right system for him, and I think that system is going to be a lot of outside zone, and of course playing defenses that don't have in other words, use them more against four. You hope that you're playing against more about four down fronts than you are 3-4, or having a nose playing the 0 or the 1 against him there. But his highlights are impressive. He's got a lot of pancakes in there. He likes to finish on top of people. He's definitely athletic, second level type guy. Can move, but I still think I don't think he's a first round center. I'll tell you that. And I'm starting to wonder if maybe he might not even be the first center off the board. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think he certainly fits best in a zone heavy, almost zone exclusive type scheme, like a Shanahan, the old Alex Gibbs system. I think he would thrive in the most. I know duo line coach Pat Meyer likes guys to be a bit longer, a bit bigger overall. And certainly there's some concerns there with Linderbaum. So, and as you said, Dave, I think the Steelers are probably more to the important question is they're higher on Kendrick Green than Steeler fans are, which is probably the most pivotal question to ask and answer of them all.
Right. You're not going to spend a first or second round pick, at least I would hope, on another guy and move him out of position. So, if you were to draft Linderbaum, it'd be because you would think that he's going to play center for you, and then then you're back to two undersized people, especially one with short arms in Linderbaum there. It just doesn't match up. And look, I'm real critical of, have been real critical of Kendrick Green. I don't like the selection as we sit here today, but I don't think the Steelers are going to cut bait with him right now, and I don't think the Steelers are. I think it's going to be one of those last resorts of trying to move him back to guard. I think they're going to give him every opportunity this summer to be the team's starting center once again, and go from there. But in the meantime, I don't expect them to draft another true center. Now, they might draft a guard that can play some center. I think there's a real good possibility of that with Zion Johnson, especially with the way he was at the combine and the things that he showed at the Senior Bowl there. But I don't think that. I think the backup plan more than likely will be to sign kind of a veteran, center maybe on the cheap if they feel that J.C. Hassenauer can, if they want to improve over that. Here's what I know: they better have some sort of backup plan in case Green does not cut it in 2022. And as far as what I'm concerned on tape so far, Kendrick Green's got a ways to go here, but I don't think they're ready to give up on him. And if indeed that's the case, it's hard to imagine them spending another first or second round pick on a true center in Linderbaum.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're going to tell themselves, and Colbert has said as much publicly, that Green was a rookie last year. He was primarily a guard at Illinois. Pittsburgh did put a lot on his plate, and so it was a tough circumstance for him to succeed in. Now, you can certainly disagree with that assessment and say, listen, this guy's still not going to make it even with time, and you may be right. But ultimately, I think that's the way Pittsburgh's going to go, and at least give Green a second year to see truly what they have in him. Again,
And what if you get 6 games into this thing and it's just not working? You
sure.
better have a backup plan when it comes to that. Now, might that be a guy via the draft, like I said, in Zion? And once again, do you want to get in the habit of taking guys who play one position and then throwing them into the NFL and then moving them to a position they haven't played there? Obviously, if you draft a guy like Zion Johnson, you would think that's going to be for him to play guard, right?
Yeah, that would be my expectation. He played center at the Senior Bowl, and I think he could play there. But I think in Pittsburgh, you would play him at well, I guess you put him at left guard and then Dots on the right guard. Is probably how you would do it.
Yeah, you put him at left guard is a more natural spot, and then kick Dotson over to right guard where he played. Oh yeah, he played over 50 games at that right guard position during his college career at Louisiana Lafayette.
Right, right. So we'll see. It'll be a big question, and I'm very curious to see what direction this team goes with addressing the offensive line, both in who they retain and who they add. Reminder, you can send Dave and I a question here in the chat. Hopefully things sound okay. I haven't gotten any complaints otherwise, so knock on wood, seems to be going well so far. But yeah, Dave and I here till 8 p.m., so feel free to ask your questions in the chat. If you like the stream as well, Dave and I would appreciate that. Helps us out quite a bit. Mike Adesso with a question. Good to hear from you, Mike. Hi, guys. The way this draft is shaping up at the top with running back and tight end, Steelers taking Najee and Pat last year is looking even better now. No, yeah, I think it looks good, and I understand we can go back and talk about it. They should have taken this guy and that guy, and nobody was a bigger Creed Humphrey stan than I was. I was saying I would have taken him at 24, but they got two good players in Najee Harris, Pat Frymuth. They'll be one of the few teams to hit on both their first and second round picks. That's just the way the draft goes. So overall, I'm not mad about it.
I would have taken Creed Humphrey.
I would
Knowing
too.
what I know now.
Yeah, I would too. But end of the day, they got two good players at least.
I mean, yeah. I mean, if look, you can't. There's no do-over button here. So, you just hate to see how quickly these running backs around the league break down, man. And you have a guy in Najee that touched the ball well over 300 times last year, and if you are going to draft a guy that early too, you almost feel obligated to give him those kind of touches. So, luckily he was able to stay healthy for the most part during his rookie season, and you hope that's the case for the next two or three seasons there. So those boxes are now checked. You obviously don't need to draft a running back or a tight end in this draft. So now you better fill out the rest of that offense and get some playmakers on there. And obviously part of that's going to be, look, if there's anything positive here to look at, especially last offseason, look how quickly the Kansas City Chiefs were able to retool that offensive line. And that offensive line was a mess. It was a disaster, and they retooled that thing in one offseason. Obviously had two good draft picks in the kid out of Tennessee and Creed Humphrey, and then made a bold move in that trade for Orlando Brown there. But it just goes to show you that if done right, you can retool an offensive line in one offseason. You can do it halfway through the draft and halfway via free agency there.
Yeah, but KC went like super aggressive. I don't think Pittsburgh's going to do that because they did draft picks, they did trades, and the signing of Joe Thuney, which people forget about. That was a massive contract they gave him to play left guard, and so they attacked it from every avenue possible: sign, trade, and the draft. And I don't think Pittsburgh's going to take that route. Not in a trade, but I could certainly see a one free agent signing and one draft pick. That's actually probably the most likely way I think it's going to go. Wes Hitchcock question here, actually two of them. How much are you buying the Ryan Jensen rumor? Speaking of free agency and offensive lineman, and is Trubisky a good fit for our offense if we were to sign him? I'll take the first one. You take the second one, Dave. How much am I buying the rumors? I know we just talked about Kendrick Green, potentially, having faith in him for year two. So my inclination is they'll stick with him, and Jensen will certainly cost a lot of money, and he's over 30. I think he's 31 years old. But I mean, I think there'll probably be some interest in some of the top offensive linemen in free agency, and Jensen is among that group.
Yeah, I think he's soon to be 31, and I think and it's not hard to speculate that he's going to come out of this offseason as the one of the top two highest paid centers in the NFL. I've seen one really, and it's not hard to believe it. Around between somewhere between 14 and 15 million dollars average yearly value for that. So if you're going to sign a guy like that, once again, you're
I gotta start streaming though through OBS. Let's see here. Hello, can anybody hear me? Let's figure this
I
out
hear
here on
you,
the fly.
Alex.
All right. Can you guys hear us? Let us know in the chat. I know some people left. Okay, I think we're back. Hello. Okay, great. Thank you. Sorry, guys. Yeah, the storms came in. My power went out, so we're gonna try to go maybe a little bit quicker here and hopefully get some people back in the chat. So, can everyone hear Dave? Dave, can you give me a quick test, please?
Test, test. Hello, hello. I'm still here. I'm hanging on.
You sound better too, at least on my end. So that's good. That's an encouraging sign. Let me know if you guys can hear Dave. Okay, sounds like people can hear Dave. So we might wrap this up a little bit sooner because odds are the internet's not going to cooperate with me tonight. But we'll go through as many questions as we can. So we're talking about Jensen rumors, and we'll see on that. Next part of that question from Wes was: is Trubisky a good fit for the offense? I was going to defer to you on the evaluation of him from a fit standpoint. What do you think about Trubisky, Dave?
I mean, from a fit standpoint, I guess I can see it. Look, nobody should be going out and getting a parade started. I think when it comes to probably any of these quarterbacks that the Steelers have been linked to in free agency, my preference would be Jameis Winston, just from the strong arm aspect of it and the experience aspect of it. I think he can win a couple of games that way. Trubisky, I somewhat understand maybe why he would be in the discussion here. The Steelers love pedigree and all, and he obviously was a former first round draft pick. He sat everybody thinks they can fix a quarterback. Someone else's quarterback there. But if I were to place a bet right now as to who the outside quarterback would be, I think it would be Mitch Trubisky right now. But I wouldn't be overly. You better be able to run the football. You better be able to utilize play action, and you better have a damn good defense. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, I agree. I think from a fit standpoint, some of those boxes are checked: the mobility, the boot game, play action, create a little bit. I see that, but I worry about the overall accuracy, the rack throws that are important in Matt Canada. It's not just about mobility. It's not the only component of quarterback play, obviously, although we focus on that quite a bit. So that is a concern there. Brian Tolini, do you agree that losing Edmonds via free agency is less than ideal? If he would leave, how do you see us replacing him? Jaquan Brisker in the second, too rich with other glaring needs. Listen, if Edmonds goes, strong safety is a glaring need. It's right up there because there is no
Sure
internal
is.
replacement. So I think you probably would do it potentially through free agency, potentially a draft pick. So, I mean, it could be either route. Maybe you'd prefer a more veteran guy back there, but it would have to be addressed and addressed fairly aggressively.
Yeah, it would. Look, I mean, if you don't pay him, which could be right around, I don't know, what's the number on him? 5 million?
That's my
Four,
thought.
four
It's
million?
always tough to gauge, but 5 is kind of the number sitting in my head.
All right, so if you don't pay him, and he ends up walking, odds are you're not going to bring a safety off the even if you would have to address that position in the draft if you didn't go free agency route, lock up someone long term. And even so, what are the odds that you'd have to probably spend a first or second round pick on a strong safety type to get the quality of guy that you could get in there and get into the starting lineup right away. And I don't think the Steelers really want to do that. So yeah, if you go the free agent route, you're going to spend more money, obviously, than what you spent on Edmonds to get a guy, to get an upgrade over Edmonds there. And who can you guarantee is going to be on the market right now that could be that guy? And it's always a supply and demand when it comes to top free agents. So if you're going to go after, one of the top one or two strong safety types in this free agency. Obviously, we'll see who gets cut here in the next couple of days here. You're going to have to spend some money on it. So my thought all along, and it's not going to make a lot of people happy, is why not just sign Edmonds to like a 2-year deal at, I don't know, $5.5 million, $6 million, make him happy, make it a deal where if need be, you can get out of it after 1 year, and then also short enough where Ed gives Edmonds, a couple more years to chase a bigger apple.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think it's the most logical thing. It might be the safest, but the most logical thing to retain Edmonds. One name I'll give you, and I'll be on my free agent wish list whenever it comes out. Should be later this week. Jordan Whitehead from Tampa Bay. He might cost more. He's played pretty well, but local kid, Pittsburgh kid, I think from Aliquippa, and I could see him wanting to come to Pittsburgh and come back home.
Sure, but how much is it going to cost you though? And what's the bidding going to be on a guy like that?
Sure, I'm not sure what it'll be. I think it'll be in that Edmonds range, probably a little bit more, but in that range. But I mean, let's say Edmonds says, I don't want to come back. I don't feel like I don't feel the love there. So it could be a variety of reasons of why Edmonds walks, but we'll just have to wait and see. Mark Ralston says if they are both available in the second, Damone Clark from LSU or Christian Harris, the linebacker from Bama. I've done more work on Clark than Harris. Harris had a great, I think they both had good combines, but Clark's always kind of been the guy I circled. So I'm going to go with Damone Clark.
Yeah, I don't have a preference here. I've got to watch more tape on both of those guys, but I kind of defer. I mean, Alex has been kind of hot on the LSU kid. I have opened up the tape and was watching it this afternoon when Alex called me the Purdue versus Wisconsin game with Leo Chenal in that one. That's the game where he had three and a half sacks. I think he had 8 total tackles and 5.5 total tackles for loss, which I believe they're counting those 3.5 sacks within that. So I'm starting to look at some of these off the ball linebackers there, but I don't know enough about either one, any of these guys to have a real highly educated opinion about the choices there.
Jason Council says, do you think the Steelers could get Sky Moore in the third round, or do you think he is a lock for an early day 2 pick? And the receivers always fall a little bit because there was always a deep class lately, but Moore seems to be, it'd be hard to get him in that later third round pick range, I think, for Sky Moore right now, Dave.
I think he is a top 100 player. I think we've established that at this point. But the now the question becomes is how deep is this class, and does it result in a guy like him falling a little bit? And make no mistake about it, his tape's good. He is an underclassman, though. I don't know how much that would scare some people off there, but I mean, it is a deep class, and I think with that is going to push some people down because, I mean, how many wide receivers do we think are going to go in the first 2 rounds? 6, 8, 12?
Yeah, it should be on the higher end. I don't know the exact number, but I would imagine at least double digits in the top 64, if I had to guess, about 10.
I, I'm not going to paint myself in a corner where I'm going to say, oh boy, there's no way that they would be able to get a guy like him in the third round there. And look, he is undersized too. And how many times do you see guys that with that kind of height go that early?
Yeah, I'd have to look at the historical stuff. But he's a bigger frame. He's just short. He's short, not small. Is kind of the way I would classify Sky Moore. Let's see. I just lost the chat here for a second. Let me try to find it again. Chat's being a little weird tonight. I missed a couple of questions here. I apologize. There was one I think from, I want to say Mark Bell was his name, asking about free agency versus the draft, in which you prioritize which route do you take. It's both. It's not one or the other. It just depends on depth of free agent classes versus depth at that particular position in the draft versus money and who's available and stuff like that. So I think you want to use both. I think Pittsburgh will use free agency more aggressively than they have in the past, but to me, it's not either or. It's a combination thereof.
Oh yeah, they're definitely going to have some free agency action here. The only thing is I kind of caution people about getting so excited that like there's going to be five, six big high dollar names in here. I think you could see a couple of bigger names, and then I think more so kind of those middle class type players this year. Yeah, I would expect maybe in the first 3 weeks of free agency, I don't know what, five outsiders maybe over minimum value potentially.
Yeah, it's always hard to put a number on that type of stuff, but I think there'll be one or two bigger names, bigger contract guys, more than $5 million per
Well,
year.
that's why I said
Yeah.
two higher price kind of guys with the other three or four kind of that mid range guys, and then you fill it obviously in the back end with those minimum veteran benefit type of contracts. And also, yeah, they're probably going to you would expect them to re-sign, I don't know, two or three of their own free agents, and maybe Edmonds will be one of those on top of it.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. It's always hard to get into those specifics too much, just based on who you're able to sign and what markets are like and things like that. But that's a good approximation of where things are going to be. Had a couple of Brazil shutouts, one from Saloon and one earlier. And again, the chat has appeared on me. I apologize. I think it was from Gustavo. I want to say just a shout out there from Brazil. Saloon was asking, is the Steelers' number 3 edge rusher on the roster right now? That's a good question. I'm really not sure. And obviously, the top you have Watt and Highsmith. You have Taco Charlton, Derek Tuska. I don't know. Do you feel like those are the number 3, the backups behind your top 2, Dave?
Well, Taco's going to be a free agent right now, isn't he?
Is he a free agent? I couldn't remember exactly what his status was.
Yeah, I mean, if we're being absolutely, as if we're using the Kevin Colbert method of as of today, Mason Rudolph is our starting quarterback because he's the only one under
Hmm.
contract. Well, then I think you have to look at let's see here. Taco is going to be an unrestricted free agent.
I mean, obviously, if you want to bring him back, I'm sure he would come back on the cheap. I think he liked his time in Pittsburgh. He's not going to break the bank. Probably cost just a little above minimum, if maybe even the minimum to bring Taco back.
I mean, I would think you could get him at least around $2 million per at the most.
Yeah. So would you?
And you would try to do maybe a 2 year deal at I don't know, maybe a 2 year deal totaling out at 3.5 million, something like that, and he gets 2 million of it this year in base salary and signing bonus. I mean, obviously, it's not going to produce a big cap number. They could sign him for whatever they want to, but has he done enough to get more than a veteran benefit contract, I guess is the question. Is there another team out there willing to sign him for more than a veteran benefit contract on a 1 year deal?
Yeah, let me rephrase the question this way: would you bring back Taco to be the number 3? Are you comfortable with that idea, or would you rather look for another outside option?
I'd bring him back to at worst be the 4.
Okay, but do you think he's the 3?
I would not feel comfortable with him being the 3. No.
Yeah, at the least I would be adding something else to compete and give myself some options there. Is the way I would answer that
I
question.
would I would like I would like to have him in the room competing for the spot, but I would not do backflips if he enters the season as the number 3.
Okay, fair enough. Baby Bubba says, "Hi Alex, I hear this is a great draft for a receiver. It is, as we talked about. I feel like we need a true burner on offense. Do you think we could possibly snag at least one of these speed receivers?" Yeah, it's possible. I mean, they will have the choice. There is no shortage of speed at receiver this year. The combine in general, literally the fastest combine ever. 31 guys running sub 4.4, almost triple the mark from the last combine in 2020. So if they want to, they can find one. I think what happens with Juju is going to be very telling if they want to look more inside outside. I think ultimately they will look for that slot option. And do they want a Juju type, a bigger guy who doesn't run a 4.3 something? Or do they want more of that traditional, shifty, kind of like Sky Moore type of guy? That'll be, I think, a very interesting decision in terms of what direction they go if Juju signs elsewhere.
as much as I would like this team to have a true, large body, you know, Martavis Bryant type of Z receiver, you know, I think it would take the team drafting two of them this year to two wide receivers to get to that this year, and especially if they lose Juju, their slot player, then they're going to have to address that with a guy like Sky Moore or Jahan Dotson, that kind of player in the draft. Now those guys obviously can give you some reps and stretch the field out of the slot and give you some snaps at Z, but they wouldn't be true take the top off the coverage Martavis Bryant type Mike Wallace type players. I don't think.
Yeah, and that leads into the next question here from Jacob, who says, I know this is his last year under contract, but does having Deontay Johnson make it less likely to pick a similar size skill set receiver like Jahan Dotson from Penn State? I'm mixed on that because you just want to add talent, and if you can get theoretically two Deontay's on the field, that's a pretty good place to be as a receiver. But I understand the point of, is there redundancy, and do you want to draft a different body type for a different position, F versus X versus Z? But I think Dawson could play in the slot as well. He's got a big catch radius. He plays bigger than his size, and I think he could function in the slot.
I mean, that's the question. Can he play in the slot?
Right, because Deontay's got the X, like he's your X receiver.
Right, right. You're not going to me. You're not going to move Deontay from being your backside X unless you have a true better option than that. And right now, I don't think you do. And how much moving around, mixing and matches are you going to do? I mean, Dotson played some in the slot, didn't he, at Penn State?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he did.
Okay, I mean, I don't see what the issue is there. If Dotson is your guy, then look, they'll probably have somebody. They retained Anthony Miller, and why the hell he didn't get any snaps later on in the season in the slot, I don't know. But at least you have something a little something. It break glass in case of emergency experience of a slot player if you lost both Juju and Ray McLeod during the offseason. I mean, even if you re-sign Ray McLeod, how many snaps do you want to actually see him play in the slot if you can help it?
Sure.
Next season. Look, A for effort for Ray McLeod, but he's not a starting slot wide receiver in my opinion there. So Anthony Miller has done it before. I don't think it's ideal, but at least he could get you to a point to quickly get maybe one of these kids that you drafted in the first 3 rounds up to speed and slowly get a larger role in the offense in the slot there. But you're right. It's going to be very telling what happens here right out of the chute with a guy like Juju. If you re-sign Juju, at least even if it's for 1 year, that buys you some time, and also it still doesn't prevent you from drafting a kid like a Sky Moore or Jahan Dotson to kind of groove along the way.
Yeah, I think Jacob's question was, I know Daniel Jeremiah comped Dotson to Johnson, so that might be kind of where that thought's coming from. That Larry says, if Tuitt doesn't come back, what's the strongest position group on this team? Man, that is a good question. Is it edge, just because you're two at the top? Is it having Watt and having an emerging Highsmith who played much better down the stretch? I mean, there probably is no easy answer there, I suppose.
What was the full question? It broke up.
What's the strongest position group on this team if Tuitt does not come back? It could still
If
be
Tuitt does not come back,
right. It could still be
it still could be. Yeah, it still could be defensive line because I mean, look at what Cameron Hayward's done, and if you get the Tyson Alu back, the version that you had from 2020, that sure was impressive. And I think Wormley, a combination of Wormley and Milk can suffice there, but it would be a close one between defensive line and obviously outside linebacker because you got defensive player of the year involved in that group.
Yeah, and it is really kind of fruitless to answer that question to an extent right now, just because the roster is going to change so much over the next couple of weeks. So I know maybe you want to have that question in mind heading into the offseason to kind of see where your team is at, but it's going to move and shake so much that our answer could be very different a couple weeks from now, certainly after the draft. Let's see. Quick question here from Taj. He says, have you guys watched Leo Chenal? This was before you mentioned him earlier. His tape is pretty impressive and very physical. What were your thoughts on him in that Purdue game and whatever tape you've been able to watch of him so far, Dave?
Just what I've watched so far in the Purdue game, mostly I'm not. I do see some straight line speed with him, obviously downhill kind of stuff, and his sacks over kind of free man, blowing through holes, overload, sugar and gaps type of stuff. But the one play that I'm look that I just got through watching, I think it's in the second quarter. They're on a kind of a dump off to a running back right behind the line of scrimmage there. He makes up a lot of ground quickly, and that play ends up being a tackle for loss. I haven't watched a lot of him, enough of him yet to see the sideline capabilities, or just him flat out playing against maybe a heavy run scheme where he's having to fend off bodies. So that's where I'm at in the Purdue tape right now. Is right at about halftime.
Okay, good deal. Yeah, I haven't really watched much, but his workout was ridiculous. 40.5 inch vertical at 250 pounds, and just the way that he ran and moved was really impressive. Let's see. Mike wants our thoughts on James Cook. I thought he looked smooth and fluid in drills, caught the ball really well. But he's going to go higher than where Pittsburgh could even really start considering a running back. I wouldn't consider one till late on day three, probably sixth, seventh round pick, and Cook will be, I think, long gone by then.
Look, I mean, I think you'd be hard pressed to see the Steelers draft a running back in this draft. I mean,
Yeah,
if they do, shame on them. Is my feelings personally, because you just spent a first round draft pick on a back. Why not see what's out there in free agency maybe, as far as a backup goes, and why not bring about 6 or 7 undrafted free agents into camp and let them fight for one of those backup spots would be my approach to it.
sure. But I mean, if I know this is true of a lot, positions where you have like your anchor, but if Najee Harris were to go down, this team's in so much trouble, especially in 2022 where they're going to have to run the ball a lot better, even more so with whoever at quarterback. So like you got to find a better runner as a backup option behind Najee Harris.
Yeah, but I mean, you got the line. I think running backs are fungible. So
Sure, no, I mean that's why I'm saying like late day three kind of guy. But this class is not especially strong, so finding that guy. That's why Hassan Haskins from Michigan, a name I'm gonna rattle around for a little bit. Let's see. Next question, Dave and I, a couple more we'll get to. Let's see. Baby Bubba was asking about the burner being a possibility. Yeah, it's possible, but I think it could be more big slot if Juju is not retained. Jason Williams, what do you think happened to James Washington? Was it a play calling thing or a lack of trust from Ben? That's a tough one. I don't think it was the latter about Ben. I think they just like Claypool a lot. They wanted to let Claypool try to work through it. They felt like he was the bigger play guy. And they wanted just to play Claypool as much as possible. And Washington was pretty limited and not someone who could move around too much.
yeah, I think Washington, he wasn't shifty enough to play in the slot for starters. Second, they just they as far as stretching the field, I don't think you really got a fair opportunity to do that. But within that, is he a kind of guy that could consistently stack on the outside? Look, you go back to his Big 12 tape at Oklahoma State. You're playing against a lot of off coverage in those situations there, not having to work so much against man. You had a lot more time for him to kind of run, run against mostly predominantly zone and run through spaces, and a lot of his big plays, yes, were made downfield, but is he a prototypical top of the was he a prototypical top of the line Z receiver coming out of college? No, and not elite speed either on top of it. So would I've liked to seen him get a little bit more playing time than he did, especially what was it before Claypool arrived? Yeah, but once Claypool arrived, the writing was kind of on the wall there, right? Because
Hmm.
both those guys are Z's.
Yeah, so I just think it was just got kind of stuck. It felt like James Washington did. So we'll see if he can kind of revive his career somewhere else. Shaquille Gregory, couldn't we go after Justin Reed from the Texans? Is he a free agent? I don't know for sure. Don't remember seeing his. Well, maybe I did remember seeing his name, but I liked Reed coming out of Stanford, a really smart, athletic dude. So it's possible. I mean, I guess anything is certainly possible if the Texans do not re-sign him.
Where was he at most recently? 49.
No,
Where
Houston.
was Reed? Houston, that's right. Is he going to be a free agent this
I mean, I
offseason? Let
just
me
I
look.
trust Shaquille here, and I think I remember seeing his name whenever I looked over a free agent list a little bit ago.
Yeah, yes, he is. He's going to be unrestricted free agent at age of 25 here this offseason here. So, look, I think they had some passing interest in him, didn't they? Pre-draft process.
I believe so to some degree. I don't quite remember, but
I
uh,
don't. I don't think they went to that pro day out there at Stanford though,
yeah,
did
they
they?
never go out west. They went out west for the
Right.
Castro and like they Tomlin and Colbert. There's no manifest destiny. They stay east of the Mississippi.
Right.
But yeah, I like the name, I like the fit there for sure. We'll see what happens. He's young. I mean, but he might command some money as well. And I know that Mike Adez was talking about bringing Marcus May, who I've talked about for a while, but he's going to cost too much. I mean, he might get tagged day, and he's played really well, so he's going to have a big payday.
Once again, I know people don't like to hear it, but don't be surprised they re-signed Terrell Edmonds.
Yeah, I'm going to wrestle with that one, and I take my opinion with a grain of salt. I thought they were putting the fifth year option on him, so that didn't happen, but could happen. See, Bizzle Nizzle, I'm a little late. Did they talk about the cap being set at 208.2 and what, if any, impact will it have on this offseason? Really none. The expectation for a while has been it was going to be at that maximum 208.2 million. So I think most teams have set their cap situations with that in mind. And with that being the number, it really shouldn't alter things too much, although it's good to see the cap going up.
Right. And this, if you go back to last May, I think, was the initial talk between the NFL and the NFLPA about having a ceiling put in at 208.2, and barring anything catastrophic happening, that was going to be the number, because they wanted to make sure that they didn't jump too much so they pass off some of these COVID losses over multiple years here. So they first agreed on the ceiling would be put at 208.2 million, and barring anything, uh, continuing to go backwards, that was going to be the number. That's the number that I've been working off of for quite some time. Everybody's been working off that 208.2 million. So it's not a surprise that it came in official today at 208.2 million. And as far as the Steelers go, look, they are not going to be hamstrung at all this offseason, barring them going out and getting a quarterback with a 20 something $1 million cap charge. They could still accommodate that, obviously, because look, if you're going to go out and let's say you trade for if they trade for a Jimmy Garoppolo, if they trade for a Aaron Rodgers, those kind of trades would obviously, or you would think, come along with some sort of a contract extension on top of it. And such a contract extension would probably wind up lowering the cap charges on both those guys to some degree, depending on how you structured it. So even if they were to go out and trade for one of these, currently under contract quarterbacks that have a over $20 million number, they'll be able to work through that. And look, you got March 20th coming up. It's going to be an interesting next few days here, because we'll find out whether or not Cameron Hayward has his contract restructured. If they have plans to restructure Cameron Hayward, they probably want to do it now, because his roster bonus is due. And if you want the maximum impact of it, you would want to turn the roster bonus into a signing bonus as part of that restructure. So if indeed they are going to restructure Cameron Hayward, that's going to happen within the next week, you would think. And then on the back end of things, you always have the ability to restructure the contract of TJ Watt later on in the offseason and free up a huge amount of money that way here. So don't, the cap and the Steelers are not really a concern this offseason at all. The only question is how active will they be in free agency and re-signing their own guys, because of them being in a more favorable position this offseason.
Yeah, I think that's a good layout overall of the cap situation. $5 super chat here from Tim M saying Alex is best in the Berg. Thank you, Tim. Appreciate that. Apologize for the gremlins tonight. Like I said, storm rolling through. It's kind of disrupted the stream, but certainly powering on through. And I'll have some videos later this week on some free agency type of stuff. So excited to share some of that content with you guys. And thank you again for the super chat, Tim. Couple more questions coming in here. Let me scroll back up to where we kind of left off. Um, do I think they'll draft Devin Lloyd 20th? That's from Eddie. No, short answer there. I don't think they'll draft. I don't think they'll draft any off-ball linebacker, and also not Devin Lloyd at 20. Jason Council saying, "I love Dave's cat primer. Keep up the great work." Yeah, that is good. And there was a little $80,000, I think, credit given to the Steelers today. So Dave, of course, was all over that information. Hey Russ, good to hear from you. Thanks for being here. What are our thoughts on signing Austin Corbett and moving Dotson back to right guard? That's from Cody. Yeah, I mean, that's possible if they sign a guard and it's a left guard and they want to move Dotson to right guard, where, as Dave said, it's probably a bit more. I think he's comfortable at either spot, Dotson is, but maybe a bit more natural at right guard where he played at Louisiana exclusively. So that is certainly a plausible scenario just in terms of signing any left guard and then moving Dotson to right guard. Let's see, a couple more questions here. Paul Brown, would you rather draft a first round offensive lineman and sign a bridge quarterback, or draft a quarterback and sign an established offensive lineman? I mean, obviously you want to go toward that franchise quarterback. So I mean, who that guy is, of course, matters. But ideally, your team, your offense is not going to move in that direction you want it to until you find that franchise guy. And so, if you have an opportunity to get that franchise guy, you have to take that chance.
Right, right. And look, here, this is the way I felt the last couple of weeks now. As we sit here right now, I think you're going to see a mid-level free agent be brought in at quarterback, and I think they're going to do everything they can to maybe draft a quarterback in the first, second round this year.
Couple more questions here. We were talking about, you guys in the chat, about backup nose tackle, and hopefully Montrevious Adams can be resigned. No guarantee of that, but if you do, I thought he played well after coming over from the Saints practice squad. So you have Alualu, who was still playing really well before that freak ankle fracture, and Adams, I'm personally comfortable with that. Let's see.
Yeah, I am too as well. I mean, but obviously there's a conversation to be had. Should a guy like the Georgia kid Davis fall down that far? It's hard to ignore what he did in the middle of that Georgia defense. That's for sure.
Yeah, no doubt about that for sure, and the incredible combine workout that Jordan Davis had. Let's see if I can find any others. Let's see. If Minka and Edmonds didn't have to be the de facto linebackers, perhaps they could have been better pass defenders. That's from Todd Solkowski. I'm not sure how much it impacted their pass defense. I'm sure Minka was frustrated by making all the tackles that he had to make, and he displayed that sometimes. The Vikings game in particular, I don't know how much of an impact it really had on them in coverage.
Right, I agree with you because a lot of times he's having to come down and get some run. So yeah, that overall I don't think that statement kind of holds water there from what the listener said.
Yeah, and some people asking about Schobert, his potential release or restructure. I mean, we'll see. I think it makes a lot of sense. I would personally advocate for that, but maybe it's just me getting cold feet about this. But is there a chance they just keep him at his current number? I'm not going to rule that out.
Man, I think you got to do one or the other with him. You go to them and say, look, will you play for $3.5 million, on the high side there, or do you want us to release you? And that that's what you offer him. I don't see how you can let that guy hit the field at the over 7 million days scheduled to earn right now, especially if you're looking at maybe potentially drafting a guy to play inside at some point during his rookie season as well. But you do like his smarts, you do like his ability to be kind of command that defense, especially in his second year. But there's a price point within that. So I mean, could they afford to obviously to carry him at the price he's at now? Yeah. Do you want to see it? No. I would go to him though and say, look, if we are you willing to take half of that to stay there? If he says no, I think I can get at least that a little bit more on the open market. Then I think unfortunately you part ways with him.
Yeah, I endorse that wholeheartedly, but I just wonder if they're not going to take that approach because they have the cap space, and I feel like they have to make those moves. But we'll see. I mean, like, they certainly could take the path that you're outlining there.
Yeah,
So,
but paying more than market value is still paying more than market value,
mhm,
and I think we both agree his market value is not, not what he's scheduled to earn this year, which is
sure,
$8.75 million.
sure. I don't disagree. Listen, I would take that approach. I would not keep him at the number if I was Kevin Colbert, but maybe they feel different. They felt strong enough to trade for him, and they could justify it and say, "Well, we traded for him late. It was a tough transition. He was kind of thrown into the fire. He'll be better in year two." I mean, I'm not saying that's the right approach, but that could be their logic.
Would you keep Joe Schobert if he was willing to take a cut down the $4.5 million base?
No, because I feel like I want to get better at the position, and keeping him even at that number just still keeps him on the team and as a starter. And I feel like you're still going to be looking for a linebacker in 2023,
Okay, so
maybe two.
you just think they should outright cut him then, basically.
Yes.
Okay, fair enough. And Zach Banner?
Yes, I would cut him as well. Now they may keep him, they may put him. If he wants to play for the minimum, I'll keep him. I'll keep him around. That's fine, especially if core four is going to walk. But if he's not, if he doesn't want to play for anything, if he wants to play for anything above the minimum, he's gone.
Yeah, I would definitely go to him too and say, look, we gave it a go last year, it didn't work out. Do you want to take your chances elsewhere, or do you want to fight for a spot at minimum salary this offseason and go from there? There's no way I let him hit the field at a $5 million. I mean, look, if he's going to earn $5 million, he's got to be your starter. You would think,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah, that's the only way you could justify it because he's only a right tackle as a backup. There's no versatility there, so he's either going to start from your right tackle or he's going to play for the minimum or he's going to be cut. And Chris Ayers says that the Steelers don't release Schobert, that'd be their worst mistake of the offseason. So understand that sentiment for sure. Got a $5 super chat here from Let's Go UW. What's your opinion on us taking a guy like EJ Perry in the late rounds to develop? From what I've seen, he's athletic and seems accurate passing. Yeah, I know Perry's gotten some buzz overall. I'm just against the idea of taking the dart throw, day three quarterback. The success rate for quarterbacks in general is low. It's really minuscule for the day three guys. There are, of course, exceptions, Tom Brady being the most famous one, but I just think either you take a quarterback early or not. Go big, go home is my approach.
Yeah, that. I mean, if he goes undrafted and you want to add him that way, to see what he's got during camp, okay. But I don't think you add a quarterback that late.
Yeah. Saw a question from Tim. Who's the best free agent guard option? I'm going to have a list of guys later this week, at least I hope later this week. So I don't want to spoil anything, but there are a couple of names out there that are interesting that I think will fit Pittsburgh well. So they should at least have options at guard.
Right. And I can't wait to read that article. I have a feeling I know a few names that'll be on it.
You probably do. Let's see, one or two more to get to. Mike Adesso, Alex, are you higher on Zion now over Kenyon Green? I think I am. Maybe that's just because I've watched more Zion and just know more about him. And Green didn't have a very good combine workout and drills and testing. But I might be higher on Zion Johnson than I am Kenyon Green. It feels a little bit more refined to me overall, Dave.
I think if you're building a short list of 5 names right now that could potentially be the Steelers' first round draft pick, and especially if they stay put at 20th overall, I think Zion Johnson absolutely has to be on that list of 5 players.
Tim Chase, outside pass rusher with the first pick. I wouldn't go edge. I know the edge class is fairly strong, but you got Watt, you got Highsmith. It just doesn't justify the snaps aren't going to be there for your top pick, and he's not going to impact your defense philosophically the way that even Jordan Davis could, who's not going to play a ton of snaps, but could really kind of change the structure of your defense in a positive way.
I agree. Look, I think they could draft an edge rusher at some point during this draft, but I will be absolutely stunned if it's first or second round.
Eugenio Rossetto, Kyle Van Noy to Pittsburgh. Can you see that happen? Cut by the Patriots today. He's older, right? He's in his 30s.
He's 30, yeah, right at 30. Obviously,
30?
people will draw the link to him and
Sure.
Brian Flores and all. That's an easy connect that way. Is he a guy? I mean, he's a guy that you can obviously move around, and do some of that standing up at the in the inside and all like that. I get that aspect of it, but what kind of snap are you going to run into? Another Melvin Ingram situation? I think obviously he's I don't think he would be as uh, crude about it as maybe Melvin Ingram was, but I'm willing to bet this late in this guy's career right now, he thinks he can still maybe play, I don't know, 60% of the snaps for a team and probably for a little bit more than a minimum on top of it. So I understand the dot connecting. I don't think it's totally out of the question, but I still expect them to have some market here, especially ahead of the start of free agency. So as I sit here right now, I would be a bit surprised if he wound up with the Steelers. I once again I do understand the dot connecting. I just think that what Steelers might want to offer him on a 2-year deal versus what other teams might offer him, along with the playing time potential, that it will result in him signing elsewhere.
Yeah. Oh, the chat just freaked out. I think we're okay still. Yeah, my gut says it won't be Van Noy. He's bounced around quite a bit in previous years. I get the Flores connection, but is that alone strong enough to justify that? Where do you play in those kind of considerations? I do have one former Flores coach player free agent to be in mind that I think no one is talking about that I'm going to have on my wish list that you guys can check out later this week, but it is not Kyle Van Noy.
Okay.
Let's see. A couple more questions about Chad Muma and Ashley Bright. Good friend of the show, Ashley Bright, asked a question earlier about that, and I missed it because the chat and the stream got all screwy. Could he become a Steeler? Certainly. He had a good combine workout, his block shedding, his football IQ. He showed off more athleticism than I expected. And that's a $5 super chat from Tim Chase. As we talk about a Muma, he's a Steeler. Certainly feels like it. And, Logan Wilson has had a really good NFL career. So I think Muma's a guy that is in that day two mix.
Possible. A lot of people. I mean, what are they going to do with Buddy Johnson?
I mean, he'd still be there as potential depth, but I don't think a fourth round pick who played 6 snaps is going to prevent me from taking a high second round linebacker.
Right. I mean, look. I mean, obviously, and we, it doesn't look like Devin Bush is going to get his 5th-year option picked up, nor should he, in my opinion. There, and they're not. And I think we saw have a couple of people in the chat say, "Why not cut Devin Bush?" Why would you want to cut Devin Bush right now?
Yeah.
Unless he becomes a super huge cancer on the team for his attitude, I don't know why you would cut him. Now, look, I think we're looking at possibly his last year, and he better play his what off in 2022, and especially if he does not have his 5th-year option picked up, because it becomes franchise tag or bust for him when it comes to the Steelers, I feel. Now, obviously, there's some chance that he plays well enough that he doesn't warrant a franchise tag, but on the flip side, could get re-signed. But I mean, at that point, if you're not getting out of your first round draft pick what you thought you're going to get out of him, you probably need to move on instead of throwing more money at the problem there. So, yeah, I mean, I could see them drafting an inside linebacker. I don't think it's going to be first or second round this year, but look, what do they have behind? Especially if they cut Schobert. What do they have behind Devin Bush at that point?
Right. No, I understand that. They're not going to cut Devin Bush. They're going to give him a chance to rebound in 2022. So I don't see cut being on the table. Mark Tobin, do you think they take an inside linebacker at 20 and sign a guard in free agency? I don't think they'll take an inside linebacker at 20. I think they will sign a guard in free agency. David, in all cap, would I consider Rodgers? I would. It's more about will Rodgers consider Pittsburgh? That's the more important question about where Rodgers goes. Mike saying, good to see Jerry O out there at the combine. Yeah, it's good to see Olszewski out there. So that means he'll be with the team in 2022. I forget who had the question here, but could you see J.C. Jackson coming to Pittsburgh? Will Pittsburgh open up their pocketbook? Dave, any chance on J.C. Jackson expected to hit free agency?
I mean, he's supposed to hit it at a big
Yeah.
number as well too. I just can't see it. I'm not gonna sit here and say I'd bet my house on it, but it's one of the many other things that I've said where it comes. I'll be surprised if it happens. I will be surprised if the Steelers go after the biggest name cornerback on the market.
Yeah, Pittsburgh will be more aggressive, but that's too aggressive for I think what they're going to be. He's going to come in 20 million, probably somewhere around there. That's just too much for where the Steelers are at.
Right.
$5 super chat here from Dion Johnson. Thank you so much, Dion. Good to hear from you. Thoughts on linebacker Troy Anderson from Montana State, 4.4240, a core 4 resign and position move inside coming out. Scouts mentioned that. I would not move a core 4 to guard. He's too
No.
light. His run blocking's too poor. It's barely serviceable at right tackle. Not going to be a guard. Anderson is really interesting guy, super athletic, toolsy kind of guy. He was a quarterback, running back initially at Montana State, and I think he won both what the Big Sky both offensive player and defensive player of the year awards there. So really interesting story. Going to be a day two kind of guy for Pittsburgh in the small school category. Unlikely to be on their radar too terribly much, but a really fun prospect. I want to follow his career arc in the NFL very closely.
Yeah, look, and he was a Senior Bowl player, right?
Yes, he was. He had a good week down there. I mean, all those linebackers did. Muma, Clark, Anderson, all I thought excelled.
Right, but I think what's kind of his ceiling as a round goes? Fourth, fifth at the most, maybe.
No, Jeremiah was saying round two. I think he's a day two kind of guy.
Yeah, off the ball linebacker for a small school kid like him that early,
I
I'll
mean,
be surprised.
Darius Leonard
I've
went
watched no,
30
I've
minutes.
watched I've only watched highlights on him only. I haven't gone into any of his tape other than just the highlights. So let me put that out there.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I saw him at the Senior Bowl. I mean, it's 4.42 at that position, though. Pretty wild. So we'll see. But I think he's at least a day two kind of guy. And we'll wrap things up.
Oh, I thought you said a round two guy.
Yeah, the second round.
Oh,
Initially I
okay.
said second round. I think no worse than day two. But I think second round is certainly plausible.
Okay.
And we'll finish things out here with actually two more questions, but we'll go to the $20 super chat. Thank you so much, Blue Cheer. You certainly did not have to do that. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us despite all the stream issues. So hopefully it worked out better on your end than it has been on my end. You think Pickett's going to drop? Do you draft if he does, and do you think will drop? Um, I don't know what you mean by drop, how far of a drop that is to consider it one. I don't think he'll drop because of the hand size or anything like that. I think he'll be probably the second quarterback taken in this draft. Is I guess my thought will be Willis the first quarterback and Pickett the second quarterback.
I still think Pickett will be the first quarterback taken, but even if he's not, I think he'll be off the board. Pickett will be off the board by the time 20 rolls around.
Agreed. And would I personally take him? He's on my list next to Wash, but I've been so wrapped up in free agency because it's coming up so quick. I feel like I needed to kind of take a pause on quarterbacks and get into the free agency type of tape. And Pablo Von Gomez, if the Steelers do not sign any of their own undrafted free agents, do they save money on the salary cap? I mean, they don't save it, they just retain what their current space is, and they will re-sign some free agents, and so that number is going to move.
Look, I mean, that was he talking about unrestricted free agents?
Yeah, he's saying if they don't sign any of their own free agents, do they save money on the salary cap?
Well, look, those players aren't under contract for 2022, so there's no
They don't
no
count, yeah.
money to be. Yeah, they're not counting against the 2022 cap now. Those contracts for those players that are set to become unrestricted free agents expire on March 16th at 4 o'clock. So it's not like you're saving money because those soon to be unrestricted free agents are not currently under contract and counting against the 2022 cap now. That's why they're going to become free agents, is because their contracts are going to expire on March 16th at 4 o'clock. Does that make sense?
Right, yeah, I think it should. So they're not counting against the cap. I mean, the cap numbers you're looking at is for 2022. And so those players that are under contract are not factored into the salary cap for 2022. But of course, if they are signed,
Right.
they will eat away at that space available. So that's how that works.
Right. So if you you get a guy like Terrell Edmonds, who we've mentioned several times during this thing, he technically he's still under contract with the Steelers because the 2021 league year has not ended yet.
Mm-hmm.
That won't happen until March 16th at 4 o'clock. Now, obviously, if they decide to resign him, then whatever the structure of the contract is, obviously he will count against the cap in 2022. But all these players listed as free agents have no impact on the 2022 cap right now because they're only under contract through the end of 2021, which once again officially comes to an end on March 16th at 4 o'clock.
Right. And Pablo says they have almost 30 million to sign a lot of players. They do, but there is a lot of other things they have to save that earmark that money for too, right, Dave?
Right. Look, you have to look at this as lines in the sand as far as time goes when other things are going to be due. This team has a lot of forthcoming cost once they get past the once you get past the draft and all like that. And this team's going to want to go ahead and pencil in that this team's going to need $10 million in reserves at the start of the year, just because that's the number that they're going to want to have for reserves. So right now they are right under $30 million in available cap space. Let's go ahead and put 10 of that aside for start of the season. You're going to have another, what is it, 3 million or so that's going to go towards your draft picks after roster displacement takes place. You're going to have a practice squad that you're going to have to sign. That's going to eat a couple of $1 million into that. You better have a couple of million set aside for players that start the season on injured reserve that end up being like players 54 and 55 or 56. You're also going to need a 52nd and a 53rd player under contract, probably at a minimum salary. That's going to eat up another million and a half of salary cap space right there. So you got to look at it in waves. And right now, the wave that we're in is this team is right around $29 million under the cap. At the start of free agency, we'll see what happens with the Cameron Hayward contract here in the next week to see if they free up a little bit of more money that way with a restructure. They have plenty of money to do whatever they want to do this offseason. And once again, if they get later into the offseason and need more cap space, they can restructure the contract of TJ Watt and free up a lot of money that way. But you have to look at it in lines in the sand, and we just crossed one line of the sand not too long ago at when the contracts voided on Juju, Ebron, and Roethlisberger 5 days after the Super Bowl. That was one line in the sand. The next line in the sand is basically up until the draft, after the draft takes place. And they have plenty of money to operate, obviously, however they want in that. And then the next line in the sand goes from there until the start of the regular season.
All right, so there you go. And so those are the dates that'll be important and key, and we'll keep you posted, of course, about the Steelers cap situation the rest of the way. So that'll wrap up today's stream. We went a little bit longer to kind of make up for the stream interruption. Thank you guys for hanging out with us. I apologize if there were any sort of issues. It sounds like it went okay overall on your guys' end. So Dave and I will be back 2 weeks from now, and we'll certainly talk about free agency and maybe a new quarterback on the Steelers roster by then.
Yeah, God bless everybody. Thank you for coming and tuning in tonight. Peace and love to you all. Thank you.
Yep, thank you guys. Be sure to subscribe to the channel. We'll have some videos for you guys later this week. So again, appreciate you watching, and we'll talk to you soon.